Buenas noches, Manila. Buenos dias, Mexico. First of all, the International Development and Security Cooperation warmly welcomes Dr. Jessica de Alba-Ulloa, prima analista, profesora investigadora de la Facultad de Estudios Globales de la Universidad Anahuac, Mexico. Thank you for gracing our pilot episode for Season 2, Professor Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Right. So, okay, let's go straight to our conversation. Mexico is sandwiched by two continents in the Americas. Geopolitically speaking, it's part of North America, but also it is identified with the Latin America. In the global health statistics of death caused by the coronavirus pandemic, Mexico has become the country with the third most COVID casualties in the world, next only to the US and Brazil, which are obviously all situated in North and South America. Rising death tolls in countries like Brazil and Mexico have cemented Latin America's status as one of the epicenters of the virus. Now, from first-hand information and your analysis, how is Mexico coping up medically and economically with the deadly virus 8 months after the first case spread out from China?
Well, you certainly mentioned that we are geopolitically located in a very good but a very difficult spot since we are neighbors with the superpower of the world, the United States, and we are partners with North America, with them and Canada. But we have also an identity problem because we believe, or at least most part of Mexico believes, that we're also part of what is called Latin America, which is the rest of with us and the rest of Central America and South America, which complicates things a little bit. But other than that, the problem here has been a mismanagement of the crisis. What happened? Well, first, there was the outbreak in China around, I don't know, October, November, December. So our authorities were not really taking any measures because we had around 3 months to prepare for this crisis, to know how to cope with it medically in hospitals, but also in the economy, because we now are facing two big problems: health and the economy. Our economy is going downside very, very, very quickly. So no measures were taken at the beginning. We had time to prepare, but we didn't prepare. The president told at the beginning the population that they needed not to cover themselves or to take any distance or go out. He recommended to go out of to places, to go out to have dinner or other activities, and to hug each other. He even said that. When somebody asked him about, he was not worried, he didn't wear a mask, he still doesn't wear a mask. He just put out some escapulario from a religious escapulario of some sort, saying, no, I have these to protect me, which is, nonsense. So everything has been exacerbated by the government's reluctance to implement some mitigation measures, also for the economy. So we have now a broken economy plus a health issue. We haven't been testing, so we don't know how big the problem is. They say we have around 50,000 people dead, but calculations say that it could be triple of that. So we're not in a good place right now.
Okay, let's talk about the NAFTA. This is the North American trade agreement, which is by far the most important trade agreement Mexico has signed, both in the magnitude of reciprocal trade with partners as well as its scope. And now that almost all of the world, economies in the world are, whether big or small, some protectionism and now into inward-looking economic revival. Can you explain to us the economic recovery plans of Mexico, which I heard have mixed signals so far? Can you visualize to us Mexico's economic stimulus and fiscal policy to sustain the economic survival of your country?
Well, we have to understand that Yeah, that is going to be helpful, but that is not going to solve all of our economic problems. Why is that? Well, first of all, we had just signed and starting with the new United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, which replaced, as you know, NAFTA, which was renegotiated when President Trump came into office. That was not a bad thing by itself, although we could have done better, I think, in some parts of it. But it is a truth that NAFTA needed to be updated. It was a very old agreement, 20 years old. And when the NAFTA had 20 years old and everybody was, making events to commemorate it, Mexico opened the possibility of renewing the agreement by updating it. And Mexico's position was quickly dismissed by the Obama administration and by the Harper's administration. So what happened later is that Trump comes to office and, well, for whatever reasons, he thinks it's a very bad deal. So we decide to renegotiate it at the same time updated our old NAFTA. So that is on right now since the 1st of July, after almost 2 years of negotiations. It is a good deal, and of course it is very important to the North American economy because of chain distribution, production, supply, etc. So now we are in a better position because of the trade war with China. We have been always saying that the problem was not Mexico, but it was China because of the trade deficit. China has a surplus with every country in the world. And Mexico has a huge deficit with China, so does the US. So the problem was not Mexico, the problem was China, and President Trump also was trying to tackle that. And since that trade war, Mexico became the first trading partner with the US. That didn't happen, had happened for a long time, because China was the first one. Now I believe we are the second after Canada, but that, it varies over the months. So this is good, and our relationship is good, but the problem is that even before the pandemics, as you may know, we had an election in 2018, and a populist president won the election by a huge percentage this time. It was the third time that he ran for president. So this time he got it for a huge margin. And it was like what we call the perfect storm, because many people were very tired of corruption of the other regimes that proven not to be the same thing over and over again. So this president won the election, and during 2019, we didn't grow at all. And now, 2020, of course, growth provisions are catastrophic. So data are already more than now. It is important to contextualize, since the fall of minus 18.9 of the GDP was registered in the second quarter of this year. So you have an idea how bad this is. This means that we have fallen twice as much as the US, which is our main trading partner, as just mentioned. So for you to have an idea what is happening here, it's bad economic policies on the first year of government and worse economic policies with the pandemic outbreak. The government didn't want to give any stimulus to the economy because they think that if they help enterprises, they're just helping bad people, because they think that rich people are mean and bad, which is not true, because as you know, an economy cannot just have the public sector to rely on. You need private sector to really boost the economy, to give formal employments. And one of the Mexico's biggest problem is that most of our economy is informal. So you can imagine that the choice here was either you die or you go to work. because you have to have an income, and many people here live by the day. So that was one of the problems. So now we are reaching a point in which every hour, 7 companies will close forever. Pemex, which is a national oil company, will lose 11 million US dollars. 13,070 people will lose their jobs. 256 Mexicans will be infected. 1,300 Mexicans will enter poverty. 20 people will be executed by organized crime. The Federal Electrical Company will lose over 50 million pesos, and 25 Mexicans will die of COVID every hour. So we are in a very bad position now, and not even our partnership with the US is going to save us from this.
Oh, those facts were interesting. One is that about the China problem in Mexico. Secondly, about the huge loss of jobs, not only in Mexico, but basically this is a problem worldwide. We are in current economic recession and depression. And now let's talk about the Mexico's wall and the upcoming November 4 elections in the United States. But basically, this will affect the relationship of Mexico to the United States. Well, of course, despite the viral and racial pandemic surging in North America, the U.S. last May awarded millions of border wall contract, and obviously the construction will begin in January 2021 if President Trump gets re-elected. Now, Trump has pressed forward with the border wall during the coronavirus pandemic, with the construction ongoing at different parts of the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, my question is, given that you have this Great Wall of the U.S., which will become the biggest challenge come 2021 when it comes to U.S.-Mexico relationship, what are the steps that Mexico adheres so far to protect its nation and people from the U.S. aggression and stringent immigration laws?
This is what we can call much to do about nothing. The wall has always existed, not along all the border, because that is naturally impossible, and it would be very, very expensive. But there have been many presidencies that had set up a wall with Mexico. And why is that? Well, to control the flow of immigration. So yes, we have a problem, but now we have an exacerbated problem because of immigration from Central America. So now Mexicans are not migrating to the United States as much as they did before. That may change because of the bad economy that we're experiencing here. But the biggest problem in the past couple of years has been the flow of migrants from Central America, which were just entering our country and crossing freely to go to the United States. Well, that became a problem because A, we didn't stop them. B, we also need to understand that each country has its own laws. We have immigration laws, so does the United States. So I think that we need to be respectful for other countries' laws, and we also need to be to respect our own laws. To have a state of law in every sense of the word. So first, we didn't really were applying our immigration laws, so we were not detaining a lot of people from our southern border, which is very porous, by the way. It's very difficult to really set up some sort of a board or a wall, because it's practically, you have a river on both sides that makes the flow easier and very hard to contain. So we were not really worried about containing the immigration flow, and you can remember the plenty of number of caravans that came along in huge numbers. With this administration, President Trump was very insisting on us as we had to do something, not to leave all the flow coming and just stopping in the southern border of the U.S. because he was very clear that he was going to apply the United States immigration law. So you might call it a stringent law, but it, Congress, if they had some interest on changing it, they could change the law to make it better, a better law, which is really needed. But all of this politics has been preventing Congress to, sit down and reach an agreement that is good for everybody. So what happened at last is that Mexico was not stopping the flow. There were very, very high numbers, and you saw the scenes on television of how 1,000 people were just, breaking into the United States illegally. Of course, you cannot let that happen. So at the end, President Trump had it and said, okay, if you don't control your border, well, we're going to set tariffs, 25% tariffs in some specific goods, which I can't remember now. It was not until then that Mexican authorities paid attention and actually said, okay, well, I think we might need to do this. So they sent the National Guard to the southern border and to the northern border to control more or less the influx of immigration. What is going to happen now? Well, if President Trump gets reelected, it's certainly he's not going to drop the wall issue. And well, if that gives them security that they're going to be more in a better position to screen people that want to get into their borders, that is fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. We cannot take a position personally and as a nation to pretend that law doesn't exist and that the United States has to receive every person that wants to migrate there just because. And we need to understand that, not only Mexicans, but the rest of the world. So the question has been why these people from Central America do not, there is this issue with when you want to be a refugee, that you need to ask for refuge in the first country that you get in. That would be Mexico. So just pretending that Mexico just doesn't exist and you want to go and live in the United States just because you want to, well, that is also a bad proposition, and we need to understand that. So the president is not going to drop the issue, but now we need to be cautious because election season is going to start anytime, and of course we are a very good target because, well, we also have our huge problems, and we can be a target not because President Trump is mean, but because we have several problems that we have been unable to deal with, like organized crime, and this lack of law state in all of Mexico, which makes us, just ready for somebody to say, hey, you're not an equal partner.
Yeah, I totally agree with your comments there. Basically, there's a level of asymmetry also when it comes to immigration laws and some of the issues there. But, last January, Mexico was heralded as the first global South country to launch an explicitly feminist foreign policy. With this new policy platform, your government is setting a new global standard and, in its own words, breaking glass ceilings. Where is it coming from, and how it is properly implemented? And lastly, do you still see a post-COVID feminist foreign policy from Mexico?
You know what? Everybody is asking, how is this going to be? Because it was announced widely, and it is considered one of the achievements of the foreign policy of this administration. But at the end of the day, we have no idea how are we going to do that. There is no a code or a law or some points that tells you how to do that. It would be a very good thing if they start with the foreign ministry and try to implement those measures that they were talking about, you know, equal pay and everything else. Equal pay, I don't think it's sort of a problem because the foreign service is the only career service that we have here in Mexico. So, you know, you have a certain post, so you have a certain salary. So that's not really the issue. But the issue is, that you have to set up some policies to give equal rights for men and women. The problem is we have no idea how are they managing that, and it happened in January, and until now it is very uncertain how or what is this going to be. So I would call it an important thing, but let's really wait for some results first to really call Mexico an avant-garde country on feminism or whatever, or gender equality. It is true that we are a very, how would I call it, unequal country in that respect.
With the machismo culture.
In many parts of the country, just, you know, in poor or in rich neighborhoods, it depends really on the education that people receive. And as I always say, this has always been, you know, the mother figure is the one that normally educates children. And this is a persistent figure of our society. And I cannot help to wonder if women and mothers are not contributing to this machista culture that we have. In some parts of different towns, small towns in Mexico, you know, women, like in other countries, like in Afghanistan, that sort of countries, women just walk 2 steps behind men and are not allowed to, you know, have their head high or raised. So it is a real issue, and we need to educate people. That's all we have to do, you know, educate, and keep educating.
Right. I totally agree with the women empowerment, and of course, you know, it sounds utopian, but I think we'll get there sooner. But now, maybe for last few questions here, let's talk about how does North America will reset its foreign policy, given that we are in the middle of this pandemic with trying to beat the virus and recover from our economy, from the global recession and depression. And there's no vaccine yet, and we see the race for the vaccine, and later on we will see issues on the manufacturing and distribution of these. So there's a huge dilemma out there. But is there such a thing as a new normal of foreign policy in North America so far?
What do you mean by a North American foreign policy? Do you mean the three
Right, the 3 countries. I mean, of course, basically the U.S., Canada, and Mexico there.
I mean, as a whole, we normally do not have a common foreign policy. This is one of the issues that gives this relationship its uniqueness. It's not like the European Union, of course. We have 2 countries that are very alike, the United States and Canada in some sort, culturally. And we have Mexico, which is very different in culture and in language origins and everything. So also, as I mentioned, our economic levels are not the same. They are developed countries. We are a developing country. And in security and in foreign policy, we don't really share the same threats and objectives. So this is why we cannot have a real common foreign policy or a common security policy. We have to deal with these issues on a bilateral or trilateral basis, but not as a complex, which, you know, in time, if we get real about being a developed country in Mexico, we may achieve at some point, but not really right now.
Yes, of course, I agree with some of the dilemma and the current situation among all these countries. But maybe for my last question here, how is Mexico reacting to the upcoming elections in the US? In case Biden or Trump wins, what would be the change of policy from coming from Mexico?
There won't be a change of policy. I mean, either Trump winning or Biden, God forbid, winning. It's not that we're going to do things differently. As you know, our president had a recent visit to the United States, which was widely criticized here in Mexico, because for some reason people think that President Trump is bad for Mexicans. It is true that he insulted Mexicans during the summer of 2015. Then he said, oh, well, I was not referring to the whole people in Mexico. I mean, to try to correct that mistake. But so many Mexicans think that he is a bad president and he is a bad president for Mexico. And I would totally disagree with that opinion, because facts are showing that the policies that he has been implementing are far better than the policies that we would see with a democratic administration that is moving very, very far to the left. So to that regard, we are not going to expect any changes. And, you know, our level of integration economically and with the partnership that we have to follow with other issues like security and immigration, it is so deep that it is already marching on its own and does not really need to be a change or a shift of policy whatsoever.
All right. So without much ado, thank you very much, Dr. Jessica de Alba-Ulloa. Muchas gracias, mi buena amiga. Until next time again.
Thank you very much to you, Dr. Cabalza. It was very nice participating in your show, and I wish you all luck with this great organization, International Development and Security Cooperation.
Thank you very much.